Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can create a Spring Boot API and connect it to a MySQL database. So let's get going. For the first thing we need to do is to go ahead and go to start.spring.io to initialize our project. We add some dependencies. We need first Spring Web. We also will be needing Spring Data GPA. And the last thing we will be needing is the MySQL connector or MySQL driver. Uh, we change the name, API, and that's it. I'm gonna keep the default configuration and we click generate. Skippa. So now I created the project and I open it using IntelliJ and we get this file, the API application. And we can run the server by executing the main method, but we will get some issues. Uh, okay, let's wait. Okay, we get some problem because uh, as we saw earlier, we added the MySQL driver dependencies and we need some information like the URL of the database. So we go ahead and go to the application.property file and we add some attribute. I'm gonna just copy them. There we go. So the first thing is the URL of the database. It should be gdbc MySQL localhost. This is the default port, and we add the name of the database. So I will create APA database in MySQL. My username, the password, and you should need to add the dialect of Hibernate. And the Spring GPA, we should give it update. You can either do create or create drop or validate or update. We usually want to make update, or if you want, you can use create to create a database for you. But I'll be using update because I already have the IPA database in my MySQL. Show databases. Right. So I already have the database API created for MySQL. So if you don't have it, you should create it using create database and give it the name that you want. So this is it. This is all we need for the application property file. And now we create some packages. So now if we execute the application, it will work just fine. Okay, it worked pretty good. So the first thing we need, the first package we will create is the controller. Let's create controller package. The second package we will need is service. Service or package, not con uh, package. We will need the service package. The third package we will need is the model package, and the last one will be the repository that will. Okay, so the first class we will create is the controller. Let's give it cat controller. And here we should give it an annotation rest controller. And here we will create our method that will return some information to the user. So let's say a string, for example, get cat, and then we will return hi, for example. And here we should give it a get mapping. Okay, so if we go to localhost 8080, we should have an error because we don't handle the root. But if we go to /cats, it will give us hi, so it worked. So the second thing we need to create is the model. The model is simply the table that will be created in your database. So let's give it a name cat. So this is the data that should be in your table in the database. So the first thing we need to do is obviously the ID. We want to have a name for the cat. It's obviously a string. String. And lastly, we give it an age. Okay, we should give it obviously an annotation. It's called entity. It's from the Java persistence API. And we will get an error. We will need to have an ID, and also a generated value. So it will auto increment, and we will leave this as the default. We will generate some getters and setters. And to do that in IntelliJ, it's pretty easy. Just go getters and setters. And we will also need a constructor, and we will also generate it using IntelliJ constructor. Okay, there we go. I also want another constructor with only a name and age. I don't want to insert the ID myself because it's auto incremented. So we will just another constructor with only these two value. And the last thing is the default the default constructor that will be empty. So this is the model, and that's it. That's all I need. The second thing I need to do is repository, and it's an interface. Let's give it a name, cat repository, cat repository. Okay. Uh, as I said, it's an interface, but it should extend GPA a repository, and we give it the class, we give it the model. Okay, the model, not cat, and we should give it the type of the ID. The type of the ID on the model. It's long, so we give it long. We also give it an annotation. It's called simply repository, and that's it. This will give us all the method that we need to create a simple API. And lastly, we need the service. Let's create cat service, and we give it also uh, an annotation. It's called service, and we create some methods. But the first thing we need to get the cat repository, cat repository. We will create our first method that it will return a list. We should give it the name get. Okay, and it should return cat repositories find all. So this find all method from the repository will return all the cats from our database. And we need to create our constructor. Well, we will inject the cat repository. So I will just do it using IntelliJ. I don't want to write all the boilerplate. So let's generate a constructor. There we go. So now we will be using this service in our controller. So here I'll do the same thing. Get I will get the the service cat service. I will create the constructor so I can inject the cat service through the dependency injection that we talked about in the last video. Same thing, generate constructor, and here we will be returning this time a list, and for it we will be returning cat service dot get catos, and I think this should will work fine, and we'll be getting some data from the database. By the way, I already have some data stored in the database. I'm just gonna show it to you. So I already have these values in the database, and this value should be shown to the client. So let's try it this time. There we go. It worked just fine. We get all the information from the database, and we can also test it using Postman. And great, it works good. Now, if we want, I will add another method to create a cat. If we want to create a new cat. So how do we do that? It's easy. We just create another method. It should return the cat created, and let's give it a name. Create uh, create cat, and it should receive a cat, and it should return. We should create for it the method in the service. So let's do that. Let's go to the service and do the same thing. Public cat add cat. It receive obviously a cat in the argument, and we will also use the cat repository again. We have a method called save that will automatically save a new cat that it will receive, and I think that work. Okay, so now we will just return cat service dot add cat, and we'll pass in the cat, and we need to add an annotation called post. This time we will use in post, not get, because we want to add some information. We give it the cat URL. And I think the only thing we need to add is the body. So request body. So the cat information will be getting in from the request body, from the post request. And that's all. That's all we need. We will execute our server. Okay, let's go ahead to Postman. We will send a post request. Uh, for now, we only have these values. Let's add another cat. Its name is Lulu. It has a 69 age. So let's send it. And there we go. It works. It gave us a 200 status, and it returned the cat created. And if we check the cat, let's send again the request. We will have it right here. It was added to the list of cats, and we also check in the database. We will find it. So it works just fine. And that's it. That's all for this video. Obviously, if you want to add another method, you can do that. If you want to delete or to update, you can also do that. It's pretty simple using the cat repository. There is a lot of methods that are created for you, like delete or update. So you can just use the other methods and create other methods under control. So that's it for this video. Thank you.